Hey there, it's the real Jason Duncan. I've got a special announcement for you really quick. I am hosting the Exit Lifestyle Conference in Nashville, Tennessee, February 3rd, 4th, and 5th, 2022. You don't want to miss it. Go to theexitlifestyle.com to learn more. You talked about being entrepreneurial inside a corporate system, inside as a W-2 employee. And the word that I hear people refer to that, and I don't know if it's a real word or not, but it's intrapreneur, not entrepreneurs, E-N-T, entrepreneurs, E-N or I-N. What do you think about it? Do you dig that word? Do you like that word?
I do dig that word. Absolutely. Because, there's a lot of people who want to start something who maybe full-time or in some other mechanism of a corporate structure in which they would love to do their own thing at some point, some way, some shape. They don't necessarily know. They know all the opportunities are there. They don't really know which vehicle to get into. And so they haven't decided how to change vehicles. Let's just use that analogy for a second. And they're currently driving the car of corporate world. There's an opportunity to be, as you said, that's a cool word, an intrapreneur, which is somewhere between the side hustle hobby business definition, but really should be oriented towards, I do want to create a real business for profit at some point that sustains myself, my life, my goals, my desire to build an empire or retire.
In today's ultra-competitive business world, being a successful entrepreneur or business owner can be very challenging. Fortunately, contemporary times have blessed us with resources for tackling those challenges and getting us to success more quickly than we could have imagined. Welcome to The Root of All Success with the real Jason Duncan, a podcast that explores how the world's most powerful entrepreneurs grow incredible companies. This podcast looks at the 5 keys to unlocking success as an entrepreneur. A successful educator turned entrepreneur, Jason's mission is to use his gifts of teaching and leadership to help others get the results they want out of life. Join Jason every week and learn the keys to grow a truly successful business.
Welcome back to another show of the Root of All Success podcast. I'm the real Jason Duncan. I can't tell you how glad I am that you're here today. We've got a great one in store for you today. I'm going to be talking with Neil Twa. Neil is the founder and CEO of Voltage Digital Marketing. He's been launching, operating, and growing private label e-commerce online businesses for the last 9 years, almost 10 years. And his companies, which you're going to hear, the people that he's helping work with are doing he's got customers doing over 60 million a year in sales, 100 million a year in sales. And you're going to hear his story about how he fails out of college on a full ride scholarship and then dabbles in entrepreneurship, doesn't really take. And then he goes into the corporate world and then comes back out in entrepreneurship, goes through bankruptcy, but then rebuilds into an amazing company that's helping people just like you, just like me, as entrepreneurs, build additional passive streams of income by going online. He's going to share a little bit of his blueprint of how to build that online business. That's not necessarily all the things we're going to be talking about today, but there is a special offer at the end of the show that you want to make sure that you take advantage of. So I want to welcome my guest today, the one and only Neil Twa. Well, Neil, it is such an honor to have you on the show. Thank you very much for joining me by Zoom today.
Thank you for having me, Jason. I'm excited to be here today.
Well, I don't remember how you and I originally got met or introduced. If you remember, I'll be happy to figure that out because I can't remember. But we've been talking now for, golly, it's been several months on business stuff because of what you do specifically, because I own an e-commerce store as part of my portfolio of companies I own, and we're not succeeding in it the way that I want. So I don't know if that's how you and I got introduced. I don't know what happened or if it was primarily for the show, but either way, it's been really cool talking to you. You've got a lot of good information about e-commerce, and I think that the listeners today are going to be very intrigued over some of the things that you share. So thank you again for being here. So let me ask you this as we get started, because on the Root of All Success, how did you get your start as an entrepreneur?
That's a great question. It's never been asked that way before. So in terms of like getting my start, in simple terms, I kind of went to college and failed and realized that later on, I died in college because I was an entrepreneur in my mindset already. And that track was just too constricting, too confining in terms of like what I had to do and when I had to do it. And as I had spent most of my life in music, jazz, trumpet, classical, and went all state, got music scholarships, and actually went to college on a full ride music scholarship. The fluidity of jazz and the ability to create something is outside of the norm. Was, I guess, something in my soul. So as I went into the business world and realized, business has a fluidity to it, and that you can sort of literally create whatever it is you want, as long as there's an audience who needs it and you can serve them. I realized that e-commerce was going to be one of those areas. And so I had the dichotomy almost of the rich dad, poor dad scenario. While my dad worked very hard and spent 28 years in mechanics and mechanical stuff, if you will, he was a hands-on guy. He learned to work on cars. On the opposite side of that, my uncle, who obviously married my mom's sister, my aunt, was very entrepreneurial. And had a boat company and was building his own thing and doing his own thing. And so I got to see both sides of that. And I really related to the entrepreneurial side that he was allowing me to see through his business endeavors and stuff, and really dialed in on that. And so at an early age, I knew that eventually, somehow or some way or shape or form, I was going to do my own thing. So this was it just kind of got ingrained in me that there was two sides to two worlds that I was able to see. And it really helped me understand what the possibilities were.
Okay. So obviously we don't know each other that well, even though we've been talking for a while, business wise. I've seen the guitar in the background, or at least the case of the guitar in the background every time we talk. And I've never asked you about it. No. But now I'm going to, because I'm a guitarist. I play guitar. I love to play. I'm a hack, but I love to play. I didn't know the thing about jazz for you. So is trumpet your primary, or is it guitar, or do you play both?
Trumpet, ukulele, piano, and then guitar. If in terms of like where my skill set, where my passion is, and where my skills literally are in terms of playing them. The guitar is down here, unfortunately. I'm actually better at the ukulele, even more than the piano, which I can play. My daughters are getting very good at that. But the trumpet was my primary instrument and still my passion because of the jazz components of that, with like Wynton Marsalis and Miles Davis and all the influences that led to that. So trumpet it still is my love. And I'll break it out over holiday seasons and play Christmas music for the girls.
Well, I can't play any horns. I tried when I was in eighth grade. Yeah. When I was in eighth grade, the girl that I was interested in was in the band, and I was not a band guy, but she was in the band, and I thought, okay, I'm going to join the band. And I'm like, but and good or bad, right or wrong, everybody has a perception about who the band people are. And I'm like, all right, if I'm on in the band, I got to pick something cool, because I can't. So awesome. I picked the saxophone, and I thought, okay, I'll do the saxophone. So my neighbor down the street had a saxophone that they weren't using. Their daughter didn't use it, and so I got it. And so I sat on the front porch every day after school, just torturing the neighborhood.
Oh my gosh! Well, the saxes were sexy in that time. It was like,
yes,
Kenny G was somewhere back there in the
yeah.
And then you had who was the sax player with the Mark's guy with that really romantic, I don't know.
What was that George Michael's song?
Was that? Yes, was that the one with the really sexy sax that everybody was like, I gotta get that because I'll get women.
Well, that was my plan. It didn't work out. She and I didn't work out. I quit the band, and I was terrible at the horn. And I actually didn't start playing guitar until I was an adult. But so what kind of guitar do you have? Because I don't know anything about trumpets, but what kind of guitar? I
don't know anything about guitars. So that was like the beginner guitar that I was supposed to get to take the lessons once upon a time to learn to do. And it's actually setting over here to haunt me. To remind me of things that are unfinished, and that things that I would like to do whenever I either take the time or energy and effort to do it. As we all know, I would really like to play the guitar more. It's just one of those instruments that can go around a campfire, it can go around a setting, it can go around a family event. You just can't break out the trumpet and go crazy over a campfire.
That would be weird.
It doesn't work. It's just not the same. It's the wrong tool for the job in that way. Now, if you want to go to a high school football game or a band game, or you want to go out into the world of music in some way, trumpets have a different place.
And you can't sing while you play the trumpet either, unless you're really
which is why I played the trumpet, because I can't sing.
Well, so I didn't know that about you. So you get a full ride, jazz music, but you failed out of college, or I don't know if that's what you meant, but
I did. I failed out. No, twice. I had to get reinstated. Last time I went to the president, and it was the choice of whether or not he'd let me back in.
Well, so you failed out of college.
Yes, I did.
But I think it was interesting the way you described that, because you said, even though you didn't really know it at the time, you think you failed out because you were more entrepreneurial minded, and entrepreneurship and structured learning don't always, not necessarily 100% of the time, but don't always go together. And then you had this uncle with the boat company. Is that right? You had the uncle with a boat company that sparked your interest in entrepreneurship. So from there, you thought e-commerce seems like a good way. About what time? I don't want to give away your age necessarily, but about what time, what year was this starting to happen for you to start realizing e-commerce?
Yeah. Well, I mean, in my mind, I'm always 25.
Aren't we all?
Oh yeah, of course. I'm 25 with 20 years experience. And if I could go back, I would be doing things somewhat differently. But yeah, no, in terms of where I was in the age of that era, as I watched and grew into the business and grew into technology and grew into what was happening, the age of the internet rose. And I was very much interested in the abilities or capabilities of the internet and e-commerce and what it could do. In fact, I had a little site called the Bargain Guys website where my partner in my business, which was basically my roommate, had put up this website where we were basically connecting people like eBay at the local, level by basically getting to barter and trade for products. So we had a little website. So once I started to see the power of that, I was like, oh my gosh, this is beyond anything I'm being taught right now in the standard structure format. And so it really started to drive my interest and went farther and farther into that and started to play with HTML at that point and realizing that the internet's capacity was going to be at something unbelievable. And so I realized if I stayed in music, I'd probably be living in a van down by the river, as I like to joke. So I realized I had to do something to figure out how to make money. And so it struck me that, e-commerce was going to be a future of something. I wanted to be involved in it somehow. I was literally going to leave and go down to Amazon in California and just park outside of their headquarters and just try to get a job there.
Wow. So that timing wise, that's mid 90s. That's kind of when everything mid to late 90s when all that's happening.
94, 95, 96. Yep.
You don't know this about me because we haven't talked about this, but in 1990, we'll see. I got married in 95. I got married young. I was 20 when we got married. Yeah. You and I are about the same age. So I got married in 95. And in November or December of that year, we got married in May, but November, December that year, we went to a conference, one of those things where they come and learn how to make money. And it was about how to design websites for a living, like to build and sure enough, I spent the money, got the certification to build websites. So I had my very first company I ever started, which was a failure, but I started a company called Networld Consulting back in 1995, 96, nice. Designing websites. And I think back now, because it's so foreign to think that long ago, like had I stayed in it, man, life would be a lot different. But I remember going to BNI, BNI, Business Networking International. I remember going to these meetings and explaining to the room of 40 people on my 2 minutes what the web was and what a website. It was so funny. I remember this one time I had everybody standing in a circle. I said, everybody stand up. I said, all right, okay, everybody hold hands. All right, this is kind of like the internet. So all the information in your brain could travel through and get over here to me. That's kind of the way the internet. And they're like, oh, that's kind of.
It was such an evolution of things. I mean, it was like, and you look back on it now, you don't realize the wave of opportunity that was being presented because we were in the middle of it. It was kind of hard to see when you're in the middle of something where the opportunities exactly lie. And so I had to pull out of college to kind of get my bearings a little bit, because at that point, university was the only place where they were really investing a lot of money, could buy the machines, and were networking them together and doing all this stuff. And nobody knew what the hell they were doing anyway. So we were all just like, I went and got a job at the computer lab just to learn how to put the machines together and play with them. So I got to play with the machines the university was putting into the labs and got to learn how to network them and build them and work on them and literally learned on the job how to do that for $4.25 an hour. And so that was like there was the understanding that led me to realizing that, the capabilities were going to be incredible. And that's when my entrepreneurial brain, I feel, really kicked in. Because I realized by, the understanding what my uncle was doing and building these amazing boats out of San Diego and what was happening over here, I had a track that I could take two different directions. I could follow the track that was more career job oriented, or I could go do the entrepreneurial thing. So I went and did the career job track. I know that sounds backwards to what I just said, but there was nowhere to go where the money wasn't being spent in such amounts that you could learn, make mistakes, and see so much opportunity gained from it by going in the corporate world at that point. And so I did. I went into the corporate world and it was terrible for me, but I did it and I suffered through it.
What'd you do in the corporate world?
Well, I actually taught myself programming. So by the time I had left that college, I went and spent a semester in a little college town here in Missouri where I was learning how to do C++ programming. And it was only a semester because it was a computer science degree. And I was 30 hours away from finding some degree component of business and computers and stuff that would allow me to at least get the degree I was trying to, go after. But in the end, I met a consultant who was working out of Kansas City for Sprint. And he was like, well, I'm making $60 an hour just programming web pages. And I'm like, show me. And he showed me. It was so basic in terms of what they were trying to teach us. I was like, I can do that. So I started to teach myself how to program. And I did it in after hours and stuff. And then I literally went and got a little job in Blue Springs, Missouri. And from there, I was able to work myself into a contracting position inside of Sprint, where we were building their first knowledge management system. It was a technology system in order to just consolidate all the knowledge, because so much information was now literally coming at everybody so fast they didn't know what to do with it. Which actually led me to the real break that gave me the opportunity to take off. And that was getting a job inside of Sprint PCS when they launched the first mobile phone. So when the first brick phone came out, I was a first 21-year-old guy running a group of 7 people whose average age was like 50. I don't know how that worked, but that's how it worked.
The brick phone. Remember those?
Yes,
there's a lot of listeners. There are a lot of listeners that remember that. I was watching an old rerun of Saved by the Bell just the other day, and Zach had that big brick phone. And I had one friend. I never saw anybody use it except for one friend. His name was Brandon, and he had it. None of us had it. We were all in our 20s. He was the one guy with a big brick phone. But so you fell out of college.
Yep.
You learned to write some code. You go in the corporate world. You're really intrigued by your uncle's boat business and the idea of being online. Amazon was brand new at the time.
Yes, it was barely even
brand spanking new. Yep. And now you get in the corporate world with Sprint, and you land something at a job that pays you enough to support your lifestyle. So when was the next transition out of corporate into an actual legit LLC or some sort of organized business?
Yeah. So what it helped me do, and the one thing that I can gain from what I learned to become successful in business, was the thing he taught me about networking. And we'll get to that more in a minute. But the result was, if I understood who was the person to be connected, and I understood how to get connected to them, it was who I knew that got me there and what I know that kept me there. And so it was literally failing up. So from there, as Sprint took off really well, IBM was hired to contract with Sprint to help manage their systems. I got into the project that was doing that, and the IBM partners there watched that and saw the successes that we were doing. By that point, it was a very large project, and I had a very key role in it. And IBM said, hey, we want to hire you. And I'm like, great. So I interviewed on a handshake in Armonk, New York, and went at IBM for 5 years. Still no degree. And so I worked for IBM for 5 years. And then I saw the opportunity in 2007. The division that I was in at this point was parting ways with IBM in terms of its location and stuff. And they said, you can either take early retirement or you can go to Argentina. And I was like, there's my shot, right? I'm set. It's going. I'm not going to Argentina. So this is my chance to make a run at it. So in 2007, I took early retirement from IBM, and I set out on my own, started a management consulting firm.
So you did this a long time. You're a decade in the corporate world.
I was a decade climbing the corporate world. Why? Because by the time I made it to IBM, which at this point we jokingly call it, I've been moved. I was traveling in 2 to 3 cities. I was living off a laptop and a cell phone. And for the most part, time, hours, and my capabilities were entrepreneurial in that way. We had tracking and systems, but I didn't go to a corporate office. I wasn't attached to any sort of normalized corporate infrastructure other than my cell phone and laptop. And so for that point, it was a really easy jump off to understand how to become an entrepreneur while working in the corporate environment that was IBM, because I kept traveling to different locations, meeting new people all the time, and learning how to network with them and build relationships quickly and build authority, and then move that position into opportunities for my business. Which is where I then stepped out on my own and turned around in 6 months and made IBM a client, where they were paying me $55 an hour as a W-2. They started paying me $250 an hour on management consulting after I left.
So let me ask you, this is an interesting thing that you just mentioned there that I have never talked about on the show before. So first of all, to set this up, what I want to ask you about is that the term entrepreneur is relatively new in our vocabulary. It hasn't been around forever, but it essentially refers to someone who takes extraordinary risks and innovation and creates innovation for the purpose of establishing a business for profit. And again, that's the real Jason Duncan dictionary definition.
Okay, so you nailed that.
But what you just talked about was you talked about being entrepreneurial inside a corporate system, inside as a W-2 employee. And the word that I hear people refer to that, and I don't know if it's a real word or not, but it's intrapreneur, not entrepreneurs, E-N-T, entrepreneurs, E-N or I-N. What do you think about it? Do you dig that word? Do you like that word?
I do dig that word. Absolutely. Because, there's a lot of people who want to start something who may be full-time or in some other mechanism of a corporate structure in which they would love to do their own thing at some point, some way, some shape. They don't necessarily know. They know all the opportunities are there. They don't really know which vehicle to get into. And so they haven't decided how to change vehicles. Let's just use that analogy for a second. And they're currently driving the car of corporate world. There's an opportunity to be, as you said, that's a cool word, an intrapreneur, which is somewhere between the side hustle hobby business definition, but really should be oriented towards, I do want to create a real business for profit at some point that sustains myself, my life, my goals, my desire to build an empire or retire. So the goal with me there was to eventually leave IBM as an entrepreneur. I just saw that I was waiting for that time and taking the steps to do it. So what I didn't mention a minute ago, and you don't know this, was I was running a game server company while I was running my job at IBM. We had 20 game server and then 5,000 plus people who were at that point using my servers to do exactly what we're doing right now, communicate in real time while playing video games. So they use the audio of my servers to talk in real time in multiplayer game. And I was a gamer for quite a while before it was cool. And that's how I built my business. I became very good at gaming and I became known very well online for it. And because of that, people would sign up for my service.
Nice. So you leave IBM. You're an entrepreneur in IBM, kind of establishing systems, doing entrepreneurial things inside the company.
Building companies.
Say that again.
Well, IBM, the other thing, the hook there was, sorry, not to correct you or interrupt, my apologies. It was that the IBM opportunity allowed me to build companies inside of companies because our POs were no less than 1 million and we were building new systems, new infrastructure. And that was part of my job inside of those. So I literally built companies inside of companies with IBM.
Yeah. Well, and that's what the entrepreneurial thing is. And the reason I wanted to bring that up is that a lot of the listeners to this show haven't yet started. The other word that we could use, there's entrepreneur, entrepreneur, and then there's wantrepreneur. There's the person that wants to do it, hasn't yet done it. So there's a lot of people that I refer to generally, and not in a derogatory way, just as a matter of fact, that they're wantrepreneurs. They haven't done anything yet. But I would encourage them that maybe the first step isn't going from wantrepreneur to entrepreneur. Maybe it's that in between, the entrepreneur. If you're a W-2 employee, take Neil's advice and look at, hey, I was a decade in the corporate world, making good money, doing what I liked, but I was building systems, building companies, innovating. And now you took that knowledge, that information, and leveraged it to go start your own company. What was the company that you started in 2007?
It was called Icon Technologies. It was a management consulting firm. I literally left IBM to start doing what I was doing in IBM for other companies. And very quickly, that led to additional contracts because obviously I had a skill, there was a need, and I just went after it and found the same people that we were helping and instead offered my services and experience to do it. And I had pretty good credentials at that point to back me up in terms of authority for what I was doing. The IBM partner who put me in the business literally called me up 6 months later and said, hey, the project that you left is failing. We need you to come back and save it. And I said, that's great. I said, how much can I charge? He said, what do you want? And I told him $250 an hour. And he said, done. When could be on the next flight? And I was like, good. So I went to Columbus and got to Cummins Manufacturing and stared a project there as a management consultant.
And then you send an invoice for back pay.
Yeah, well, that's basically what it ended up being, right? I should have said $500 an hour. He probably would have said I would have got you for 400. I was like, oh, dang it. So it took off from there. And for a while, I used that skill set to bridge the gap while I continued to learn how to become an independent entrepreneur. There are, you've defined two levels of entrepreneur. I would call an independent entrepreneur those who are developing their own systems and processes, and at some point, someone else is relying on them. And then there's the entrepreneur who's dependent on someone else's systems and processes to become or to enable them to be an entrepreneur. So there are literally, in my mind, two classes of entrepreneur. Not to segregate and say they're better or worse in any definition. Yeah, one allows you to do one very powerful thing, and that is leverage the experience of someone else's infrastructure, knowledge, and years and history We would call that in the business world coaching or business mentoring, to leverage that gap of knowledge and go faster. I didn't have that by the time I had gotten into IBM. At this point, my uncle that I'd relied on for knowledge and information and just, connections and obviously a deeper understanding of business relations outside of the corporate world, unfortunately had an accident in an ultralight aircraft and died.
Oh, man.
He had left my sphere of influence, kind of leaving a gap, basically sending me out on my own. So there's where I understood the differences between an entrepreneur who was relying on other entrepreneurs to build systems, and literally becoming an independent entrepreneur. Because at that point, I was now on my own. My infrastructure and network at that point was not connected to enough other people like me who was kind of doing their own thing, because I was relatively new and the network wasn't very strong. So I had to claw my way along and figure out how to make that work without the reliance of him anymore. So that's where it really kind of, cut the bicycle wheels, if you will, and took the training wheels off my bike. And I wasn't ready for it. I mean, who is really, right? But I did understand the differences between the two. And so that's when I now I become a hedgehog. Later on, when I read the book Good to Great with Jim Collins, it's one of the biggest things that resonated with me is that I didn't go try to do something completely different. I didn't go try to reinvent the wheel. I just stayed focused on doing the things I knew I could do while trying to draw attention to myself and my business as I was growing it up. It led to additional contracts. My team helped deliver the 2010 census for IBM. We were the lead management contractor, consultant for that. And I got to do some additional public and private sector products with Boeing, and got to work with the guys who ran the drone division out of Las Vegas while we were helping them with some of their management business, and got to do a lot of cool things I can't talk about. But it was a total learning experience that then literally was evolving and re-evolving all around e-commerce. Doesn't sound like it, but it was. Because at that point, I was starting to learn about the power really of lead magnet marketing and online marketing in terms of mass marketing, where I was still in a one-to-one mind. And the real opportunity for entrepreneurship is to realize the mass marketing capabilities of the internet and how to harness your own unique position and business model and value proposition to the world into the mass market.
So what'd you do with Icon? What happened to that company?
Bankrupted it. It was a strategic move because of an investment deal out of Oklahoma at that point in the oil and gas industry. I got leveraged a little too far in terms of money, time, and energy into a company whose investment base and the other partners had been cooking two sides of a book. Didn't realize that until I walked into it and had gotten leveraged far enough that the lawyer said, you know what, you need indemnified, you need out of this. And the best way to do it is to create a bankruptcy. So I ended up bankrupting that company for a business strategy decision.
Wow.
In order to get out of that.
What was that like? I don't think anybody's ever shared a story like that on the show. So
yeah,
what was that like to do a bankruptcy for a business?
There are worse things in life. And I was really ran into that in terms of the definition. If it was the only thing that was in my challenge in my life at that point, it was the only thing I was really being affected by. I would say it really sucked. It was the worst thing that could happen. That wasn't actually the case, because my wife was pregnant with our fourth daughter when that occurred, and she had gone into some medical issues that made us, concerned that daughter might not actually be born. She woke up one morning and it was a terrible incident, and she raced to the hospital and they got it checked out, and we thought the baby had died. So that was a terrible incident that occurred right in the middle of that whole, determination of bankruptcy and stuff. So at that point, my focus shifted to family and support over here. And the bankruptcy thing, I suddenly could care less about. Like, I really just, whatever, like this just suddenly shifted. And because of those two things, I could see now why I was less concerned about the business and the finance world at that point, and I was more obviously concerned about my wife and my child. So I had a different shift in priority. But again, as I mentioned, if that had been my only priority, I think it would have ultimately destroyed my confidence. It didn't, but it sure tore it to pieces. There's no doubt about that, because you start to question a lot of things. And so confidence was a big factor in my turnaround. And really learning to dig my heels in and kind of reinvent myself at that point into what the next steps in my life and business would look like, while dealing with literally becoming a mom, a dad, the primary caregiver, and the guy who was also dealing with the bankruptcy proceedings. My child was okay. It all worked out just fine. But it led to another issue with my wife that put her in the hospital 5 months later, 3 months after the birth. And she, with a fight for her life, in which she was resuscitated twice and died on the table once, and had 3 surgeries in 24 hours. to save her life from a medical procedure that failed, which turned into a 1-year battle for her to basically get back to life. So post bankruptcy, dealing with kids, 4 young kids, 5 years and under, and a sick wife, and trying to rebuild my business and reinvent myself was the focus of those years.
Wow. You mentioned the book Good to Great. I'm going to go back to that in a minute, but I'm also going to mention another book because of what you just said, is that in the 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss, he talks about choosing your muse, choosing the thing that you want to do, this big thing. And in the process of encouraging through the book people to do that, he says, imagine for a moment the absolute worst thing that could happen if you fail at this thing.
What's the worst thing that could happen?
Yeah, what's the worst that could happen? And for most people, death is not part of the worst thing that could happen in a business venture, right? That's not part of what's going to happen. It's bankruptcy.
Yes,
it's losing everything. And you faced it head on and survived it. And we're dealing with a worse issue, which was life and death for 2 of your family members throughout that process. So congratulations to you for pushing through. And for anybody that's scared to move forward, listen, think Neil survived bankruptcy in a business, and now is here extremely successful. He's a guest on the show, and he's doing some amazing things, which we're about to start talking about. But I also want to go back to the book, Good to Great. I want to highly recommend it. If you haven't read that book, listener, you need to go find it. I know it's old. It was published in, I think, 2001.
Still so relevant, though.
It is so relevant. There is only one company out of the great companies that he reviewed that's no longer in business, and that's Circuit City, right?
That's right.
And that's because they didn't embrace e-commerce early enough.
It was a major Achilles heel for them.
Which is a great segue to you.
It is. Well, and to get to that, and to pull out of what sounds like really depressing. Of course, I can speak about it now. Everybody's alive and everybody's safe and it's okay, right? And it was a terrible time for our family, but it shifted the focus of understanding time management, what's a priority, and how I reassess priorities in my life. Because at one point I was burning hours, I was burning time, I was hustle, which I absolutely hate that word now. And so, as you said, what's the worst that can happen is the first question. The second question, or the second statement that I now identify behind that, as I identify any business opportunity or situation with my life or family, is feel the fear and do it anyways. And it was a book that I picked up by Susan Jeffries while I was going through that momentum period where there was literally nothing I could do in my life except take care of my family. Like, business is not as big of a priority. Yeah, I needed money and things, but it sort of just kind of worked along, and I had a faith that it was going to go, and my faith was reciprocated. And because of that, I was able to sustain the home while trying to reinvent myself, pull my confidence back together, and decide what to do next. What I also saw was that reshifting of that, feel that fear and do it anyways, because I had nothing else left that I could possibly face in terms of the fear, because I don't really fear my own death in situations, but the fear of becoming a single dad, losing my wife or one of my children, and being left with that reality was a terrible fear for me. And I was living it. I was walking it. And when you reach that moment, that precipice, you have to make certain decisions that you don't ever expect you would have to make in life. And one of them was, what do I really think is worth time in my life? What do I think is really worth an effort? And it became my family. It really was. It really had been something that has shifted my focus away from business to a degree. And it sounds like it would be an antithesis of success in business, but it actually turned out to be the reasons why I believe I'm now successful in what I do.
So you shut down Icon, and when did the company that you own now, that you founded, Voltage Digital Marketing, when did you start that company?
So this business of holdings actually started 2 years ago as a reboot of a company that we started in 2010. My business partner, who is currently still my business partner now 9 years later, Reed, he and I got introduced in 2010 by mutual friends. I had gone back to the roots of something I knew really well, which was the online marketing component, as I mentioned a minute ago. And one of the areas I started to hedge into was mobile media marketing, because I've had a whole experience watching an entire media company, literally Sprint, come from 5,000 people they hacked together from inside the Sprint organization to build that division for mobile, and then turn into 80,000 people by the time I left. So I watched a hyper growth situation in the mobile market. I saw the capabilities of mobile media and advertising being a huge opportunity. And so I capitalized it as the Icon was going down into mobile media and online lead generation. And because there was no web apps and none of that crap, we were literally uploading marketing campaigns on spreadsheets into servers that were going into the mobile webs for the phones out of all across the world, literally. And we started striking gold in a number of locations, Italy and South Africa, in mobile apps that literally started to generate thousands a day in profit. And so it was doing very well. And to diversify that knowledge and realization that I was making those companies money, I learned about Series A funding and how they raised funds through the lead generation effort, and started to learn how to raise funds on my own outside of the original fund gathering thing that caused the bankruptcy, because I wasn't involved in every aspect of it. Now I was. And so I understood about the business and the building of the funds, which led me to the realization that I shouldn't be building those companies' funds up. I should be building my own e-commerce brands, physical products. And that led to the question of, doing it in the capacity I was or other mechanisms. And a friend of mine literally one day said, "Hey, have you ever sold anything on Amazon?" I said, "I didn't know you could sell anything on Amazon. If it's anything like eBay, I want nothing to do with it." Right? Because it's like a garage sale of crap. And I was like, "No, I don't, that doesn't, I'm building brands. We're doing all this big stuff. I don't want," and he said, no, you can build brands. And there's this thing called Fulfilled by Amazon, where they literally take your product in their warehouses and handle the support and logistics, and they handle the last mile to the customer's house. You don't even have to do that. You don't need a warehouse and all this stuff. And I'm like, okay, well, this is very fascinating, because at this point, everything I was doing was digital. So I wasn't touching the products, right? They were all digital media and marketing. And so that really resonated with my brain all of a sudden, to realize that I could put money into a physical asset product, but never even have to touch it. And so all of a sudden the brain gear started going like crazy.
So Voltage kind of started halfway from you were doing the digital stuff anyway, but not e-commerce, specifically selling product. And your friend goes, "Hey, have you ever thought about selling to Amazon?" And what I think your answer to that is so common now that I have an Amazon store and I hear people talking about Amazon, and how, and they, there's this idea, we'll boycott Amazon, or we don't like Amazon, they're too big. Here's the thing. Yes, Amazon makes money when you buy it, but they're not, most of the stuff sold isn't their stuff. It's 70%. Mom and pops like you and me who have stores on there that are selling stuff. So when you say, "I'm not buying from Amazon, I'm buying," why? You're supporting the local guy down the street. Amazon is the fulfillment.
Most people do not understand that. Like, they don't realize. And that's actually one of the benefits of the system, is a lot of the buyers don't understand that either. So when they're buying similarity and familiarity and gaining the trust equation through Amazon for brands that we're selling them that they've never heard before. And as soon as I recognized that opportunity, the light bulbs in my entrepreneurial brain went like ding, 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 ding. Because we started to launch brand after brand after brand and just take advantage of the system. Now, here's one little thing that I had in my wheelhouse of knowledge and experience that many didn't at that point. And as a marketer and a businessman, I recognized this opportunity. And as you just said, to be very succinct, Amazon is just a vehicle. It's like taking an Uber would you yell at the Uber company if you didn't like their politics and stop using it? I see people doing that, but yet they take an Uber from, the Vegas airport down to the convention center. So you're just using a vehicle. That's all you need to be thinking about. It's like any other vehicle on the web, right? Or any other vehicle in business. It's just a tool. Okay. Amazon is just a tool. So we started to launch those. We took off, and those reciprocated more and more brands that led to a company that my partner and I owned. We did training and course materials. You asked about when Voltage came up. We actually stopped for 3 years in terms of teaching anybody, coaching, and just worked 100% in our business. And that was a really great growth period. It only restarted and came under the name Voltage in the September 2019 because of a hedge fund that approached me and said, "We want to buy all your businesses. How many do you have?" And what we'll segment here in a second is what has occurred in this marketplace of opportunity is now literally $7 billion in deployed capital into the purchase of these specific brands on Amazon channels. And it started around October 2019. And those Amazon aggregators, as they're now referred to, there's about 60 of them, and they are out trying to buy up every single Amazon brand they can get their hands on.
Wow. So, and can you talk about the hedge fund, who's behind that? Or is that something you can
cannot. But I can tell you, we also have home offices and accredited investors and stuff within our groups who are looking to buy these like crazy. We had a $100 million offer come on the table. I think I told you about this. And because of that realization and knowing that my basis of the background that I had was, again, understanding risk and feeling it and feeling the fear and doing it anyways. And as we assessed that situation, we said, no, that's too life-changing. It's too life-changing from the focus that we had come together as partners and had stayed involved in back in the days when I was dealing with all the stuff we talked about. So it's not willing to compromise that, even though that offer was there.
So let me ask you this, and this is obviously the show is the root of all success, and you've been very successful. You worked for $4.25 an hour. You've worked for $55 an hour. You worked for $250 an hour, and now you don't work for the hour. But let's just suffice it to say, $100 million offer means that you're making a lot more than $250 an hour.
$100 million investment in the company would have been such a crazy thing. I can't even put my mind around it, other than to say no.
Yeah. Well, 9 figures is a lot of people don't get to look at that. I've had other guests on the show who exited with 9 figures, and it's like, oh man, wow, that's pretty cool. But let me ask you this question. So how do you, Neil, define the word success?
Well, to kind of pull it all together from the last little bit of conversation, my success is now defined by what my closest family members would say about me. It's not defined by the business world. Having been in the business world for a while, having met most people's biggest fear in business, bankruptcy or financial issues, I can tell you that success for me is defined by the fact that I'm around my family every day. I've been to every one of my children's births. I've been involved with them every day since they've been born. I've only been away from them for like 2 days in the last 15 years. And so we homeschool. We live on 40 acres in the country. My success is now defined by my family unit and how my family unit works in the world and how we are successful at what we do together around here, the property, chores, and the littlest things, and the time in which we spend together. It is no longer, and I see this now very differently by the wealth or monetary driven aspect of what people might consider success to be. Wealth has changed its definition. Wealth for me is family, and that has very much changed my opinion of business and given me a more purposeful time spent on my business activities.
Well, I can certainly appreciate that, because I know that I've had people on the show. There's colleagues in my circles of influence and masterminds that I'm a part of. My mastermind that I run, there are people that are making, 7 figures a year, 8 figures a year. But that's not what it's about. It's about, are you accomplishing the results you actually wanted when you started? And for you, Neil, it's spending time with your kids, it's spending time with your wife, it's spending time on the farm. It's being able to be in control. And I love that because I've made more money. I've made less money than I'm making now. Right. I mean, it flows up and down, up and down. But the reality is I'm living in the center of what I want to do. I'm successful because of that. And that's what I hear you saying, is that success is living in the center of what you want to do without anybody telling you what you have to do. Like,
it's a lifestyle by design at the end.
Exactly.
Of the day. And that's one of the things that it doesn't have to do with a monetary, because I know successful people on all spectrums, as you know, and I know guys who work blue collar who are some of the happiest people I know, because their success is not defined by their monetary income. It's defined by the purpose and the servant leadership attitude that they take wherever they are in the business world. And I resonate with that. My dad was a blue collar worker. He was a hard man. He taught me about ethics and things that I hold very dear to my life, to my structure, to my family. But big picture vision people like my uncle really helped me to see the opportunities that are out there and then help define them, not be defined by them. And I see so many people taking success and answering the question in reverse, and I no longer see that.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that very much. I know that on the show, I always ask that question, what does success mean? And you defined it in very personal terms. And I appreciate you doing that. I know that the things that my listeners are used to me talking about on the show, most of the time I do it every single time, but the 5 keys that I found and that every entrepreneur like you have used to unlock that success, the ability to live the life that you want, are always the same. And I have been making notes while you're talking, and I have identified at least most of these keys. And I'm going to run through what I saw in your story, and I want you to either agree and acknowledge that, yeah, that's correct, or no, it's actually a little more different, or you can certainly feel free to disagree. It doesn't cost you any extra. The first key to success I find is passion. It's the willingness to endure for the thing that you want to do. It's not just the love of it, although that is important. Passion is really meaning willing to endure. And I can see that one of the things, a part of your story, the passion was that, hey, I'm going to go through this bankruptcy because it's the right thing to do. Although people might have different opinions about that, but it's the right thing to do. And I'm willing to endure this for the things that are important to me, which is my family, taking care of my wife and my unborn child and making sure. So I saw passion in that. What else I saw, and I'll go through these all 5, and then I'll shut up and let you kind of respond. So passion is kind of the first key. The second key is being at the right place at the right time. And I believe that because you and I are about the same age, I believe that your college experience going through right around the time that the World Wide Web was coming online, America Online was coming. Hey, remember that? AOL.
Oh, yeah.
You've got mail.
Yes,
I remember getting that. And then Amazon starting. And I think right place, right time was that. Plus, I think the other part of right place, right time was IBM. Had that not happened for you, who knows? Because you wouldn't have got that $250 an hour contract. So I think right place, right time. There's a couple of places you could point to, at least the way I see it in your story, that led you to success. The third key is knowing the right people. And your uncle, I think, was one of those people. I think that knowing him and having his influence in your life led you to be the entrepreneur that you are now. Plus, as sad as it is, his death also propelled you to a new place because now you have to do it on your own. Now, I'm going to stop. I'm actually going to take a breath there. Those are the first 3. What do you think? Am I reading those 3 keys correct in your story?
Yeah, I think the only adjustment, not even correction, just a slight adjustment was, the passion that I had for helping others. Like when I shifted the focus away from myself, which was ultimately what led me into a blinded position and a blind spot that even allowed that bankruptcy to happen in the first place, was because of my self-centered, egotistical, driven nature. And when I stopped and realized that I had not been serving, and that I'd been taking, this is when things started to shift because I was forced into a servant position in my family and in my life. And I had no other choice but to just sit down, shut up and do it. And when I realized that, I realized that the happiness of others, the success of others became a passion of mine. I've seen that. I've worked with people and I have people who are very successful because of the efforts that they took based on my guidance and direction in my company. And it's very exciting for me to see the dramatic difference in their life and their opportunities and the things that they're now making decisions in that are purposeful or success driven for them and seeing how those are being defined. And so that this is the readjustment a little bit, only to say that the passion I really feel is the servant leadership component of our business and what we do to help others. And the e-commerce has actually become second. It's just a car. It is just a mechanism to deploy capital, time, and energy into a mechanism that can be successful. You could do that in many other areas if you choose to drive different vehicles, right? This is just one that I realized had become an important part of my entire life, was revolving around online e-commerce.
Well, and I think too, as I finished this conversation about the 5 keys, as we finish the show together, finish the episode, I want to talk about your business builder program because that is illustrating what you just said, what you're trying to do with other people. Yes, it's a way to create income for yourself, and nobody's blind to that fact, but it's driven from a passion to help other people get their success, the things that they want in life. The last 2 keys, so you got passion, place, people. The last 2 are preparation and plan. Yeah. So in the preparation, here's what I see in your story for that you were prepared for success is that you had that energy to get into, failing out of college and the jazz scene and playing trumpets into figuring out code and how to write that and understanding, although you probably don't write any code today. I don't know. There's only a few people who do. Everything else is done by computers, but preparing you to get into that e-commerce world, that digital world, working for Sprint, working for IBM, prepared you for it. And then the 5th P is plan, which is, what is your plan to deploy the capital required to make your business successful? That's the one that I didn't see as clearly as the others. But what do you think about preparation and plan and how that played into your story of success?
Yeah, I mean, preparation was somebody might think of it as a tangible aspect. A lot of people think preparation in terms of their life, their security, or other measures. I really see it as a mindset thing, preparing your mindset for any of the challenges and difficulties that you could face or how you would work past them should you be faced with them. And again, regardless of what mechanics we might define as the business or mode of business that's being done, and we can sit here and define 100, 1,000 of them, it really gets down to, am I prepared to deal with the challenges? Am I prepared to deal with maneuvering through those difficulties? Is my mindset prepared to do what it takes to make this work legally and ethically? to see the success and the ultimate outcome that I want from that. And if I stay at that and I persevere through that, I will see that success when others have fallen off. That is one of the biggest differences, right? And is one of the biggest differences that I see in the success of my people. They chose to do this. They were looking to work with someone to get it done. And when we cross paths, as the old saying, I think it was Bob Proctor that said, when the student is ready, the mentor will appear. That time and energy becomes what eventually becomes the plan, the preparedness component of it, which is, what do we actually do? What's the game plan? How do we get this done? I'm ready to go.
Yeah. Well, now you're doing with Voltage, and that's what I want to talk about as we finish out the show. I want to give you an opportunity to tell everybody what it is that you do, because from your passion of serving others and helping them get the results they want out of life, you with Voltage not only are selling your own private label products and doing your own thing online, you're showing other people how to do it in a pretty significant way where they can build an additional passive income stream online by using your system through Voltage. So I'll say this, that this is not necessarily a pitch for your services. However, you and I are going to be doing in the next couple of months, we're going to be doing an Entrepreneur Master Series on that idea of how to create an additional stream of passive income online. And you and I are going to do that together to talk about how that happens. But generally speaking, just kind of high level, what is Voltage doing to help people get online and generate that passive income?
Yeah, in its most simplest term, Voltage is like a franchise for e-commerce businesses. While we don't take ownership or profit sharing like a franchise does, we do give our builders the opportunity to leverage our experience, our infrastructure, and the mechanisms to deploy a brand into a market that is already demanding that product. We just give you the opportunity. So we'll launch and operate, we'll acquire or exit these brands with that specific focus on Amazon FBA, the Fulfilled by Amazon system that we started learning about 9 years ago. We do that because it serves one of the biggest problems that most online people or online entrepreneurs are wanting to get online or take something or start or move something offline online is, how do I actually get people to see my product? How do I get people to be interested and buy my product? How do I get the eyeballs on the offer, as we refer to it in the marketing world? With 200 million people going by Amazon's 7-lane highway all month long, there are people every day buying millions of dollars. In fact, they're buying $630 million of product every day on Amazon. And as you mentioned a minute ago, 70% of that is sold by third-party sellers like us. So its mechanism is majority deployed by small businesses and people like us who are building brands. And literally, as I mentioned with the franchise, we're incubating them on Amazon to prove the demand, to prove the price point in retail, and then be able to prove the brand growth, even up into the multi-7, 8-figure mark, before deploying it out into the rest of the world through whatever mechanism, wholesale, retail, television ad, et cetera, that you want to take that brand into mass marketing. And so we literally show people how we've been doing that and replicating that success and exiting these companies, building them with the end in mind from the very beginning, and then literally giving people the on-ramp, my business, to do every step, every revenue generating activity without failure, literally, because they know that these are the things they're going to do. It's just a matter of when down the road their success will occur in their brand.
Yeah, well, the exit part, obviously, my listeners know that's my thing. Exit without exiting. Any business that I'm involved in, if I'm starting it, I don't even want to enter it. I want to make sure that I'm not even a part of it. I want it to run without me, and then I want to build businesses, if I'm building it from scratch, to exit, whether I sell it or whether I keep it, just keep passive income coming in. Well, you've done now with your clients over $100 million in physical product sales through Amazon. That's insane. That's a lot of money. Now, going back to that offer we talked about, the $100 million, that's so much money.
And it's actually not right. It's not accurate. So let me be very clear. I have one client that launched with us in 2015 who does 60 million a year on their own. So It's an actual understatement. I hate to say that because it sounds sort of unrealistic. But I have clients that generate between 60 to 100 million a year just in their businesses alone. And I actually like to brag about that because they make more money than we do. And I think the measure of success as a business coach is to look at the people that are around them and say, are they as or more successful than the person that coached them? And I consider that a badge of honor. I don't want to be the smartest guy in the room. I don't want to be the most successful guy in the room. These are all metrics of vanity. These are all metrics that do not make money. Okay. They are all, capitulating to some idea that it's all by me. It's all driven by me. What we do and what I've built with Voltage is an ability to give someone something that I did not have. And that is that entrepreneurial, that mindset focus, and a game plan to execute a strategy that wasn't handed to me. When I built it by hard knocks and learned all the different components and got it all together and made it successful, I realized that there were a lot of people along the way that helped me get to that point. I just didn't ever acknowledge them because, again, I was in the wrong mindset. But when I stopped and looked at it, I realized that the mechanism that will make more people successful is to continue to give everything I can to the success of their business. And then we both win in the end as we sell that business out to our group. That is the metric I consider to be the most valuable in the business.
Wow. 60. I mean, I know you said 60 to 100, but $60 million in sales through one store. That's mind boggling. I can't even
give him all the glory, because he and his company actually went on to build a media division and added on another 120 million in sales off Amazon through their activities, marketing, et cetera, out of Phoenix, and became the number 337 on the Fortune 500. And he's now exiting that brand right now at 9 figures. But I give him all the glory. We fixed his business at the very beginning. We fixed his mindset. We helped him see the opportunity to grow and scale on Amazon the correct way for brand building and diversification and targeting higher profit affinities than just what I called Amazon's mosh pit, which is all the $20 less products that everybody fights over. And it's like, you get in there and there's the guy with his bald head and the tattoos and you all get slammed around and it's sweaty and nasty. We like to operate up in the $50 to $300 range, average is $100. And so when we helped him raise his brand affinity and understanding, immediately profitability went through the roof. He understood the game plan and he just went down to executing. And I give him the kudos for that.
Wow.
He executed it very well.
Well, that's a huge teaser for people listening to the show. So I want to say this, and I'll do a quick plug on this. So Neil's going to be my guest expert on, I do a series called the Entrepreneur Masters series. It's not a show like this is an episode that goes out on all podcast players, but it's a Zoom webinar that is available only to the people that are members of my Successful Entrepreneur online learning community. That community only costs $55 a month to join. You can go to therealjason.duncan.com/TSE for the Successful Entrepreneur. It stands for therealjason.duncan.com/TSE. And once you join, you get access to trainings like this. So what I'm doing with Neil, we're going to be doing this in the near future. So you can go, if you're a member of TSE, you can get in there and actually do this 90-minute amazing deep dive into exactly how to create that additional stream of passive income online. Now, he's not promising you're going to do 60 million, but you never know. You might be that next guy.
Yeah. Would you like me to tell you real quick what just the high level topics we'll kind of cover
please,
in that, so people can get an idea? So the first thing that everyone always asks me, well, outside of how much time does this take, is what the blank am I going to sell? What the double hockey sticks? Like that's I got it.
It rhymes. Sure. What the hell am I going to sell?
There you go. You said it. So we'll go through that topic because it will be the one that we'll initially break down over that 90 minutes in multiple segments of the second one being by the numbers, like how we go by the numbers to validate the products. Like once we build a really good list of product ideas, how do we know which ones are the most profitable? Which brands should we approach, and how to make sure that the product is profitable, so the brand is profitable, and of course the whole business and P&L are profitable. That's a very big component. It's a data-driven metric decision model we'll talk about. And then we go through a topic called don't marry your products, but steal someone else's girlfriend instead. What it basically means is there are so many products inside of Amazon that you can take and innovate down to even a trademark level that you don't need to go think about it. You just need to go through the data-driven model and analyze those products and look at all the girlfriends out there that you can steal. And now I'm married, by the way, so this is just joking. There are plenty of products in Amazon that you can literally just borrow the data from and then build amazing brands off of that data. It's innovation. It's, again, that equation of similarity plus familiarity equals trust. And we show how to do this in a repetitive process. Okay. I mean, repetitive with 90-day expected cash flow plans and annual run rates, right? It's all data-driven. And the other component is like the technology a little bit. This will get a little technical in this topic, but it's Amazon is a river, but it is also a tree. And that is literally understanding that Amazon is a giant technical database of information. And it is a search engine driven model. Unlike Google, it's product driven, and it's meant to sell you something in 30 seconds or less. So the whole engine itself behind this system is referred to the A9 engine. It's technical, but it harkens back to the days of IBM. And I didn't mention what I was doing there during that time, but we were building latent semantic search engines and knowledge-based engines that got product and information to people in the fastest time possible so they could answer questions in near real time. So we learned how to build these latent semantic knowledge-based search engines, and come to find out they're running one inside of Amazon. So as I learned about the engine, I reversed it and understood exactly how to get the engine to talk to me and tell me what it wanted, and learned that my product was better than others. So I can start selling products in 48 hours with no reviews and go in and absolutely destroy my competition in 6 months by just following the same tactics we deployed 9 years ago. The final one is really the whole component. We'll talk about that at the last part of that conversation. We call it the platinum principle. And that is literally building the business with the end in mind, so that in 12 to 18 months, you have an asset. It has its intellectual property, cash flowing, okay, because revenue is, vanity. And I'm going to get this wrong. Profit is sanity and cash flow is king. As the saying goes, you can cash flow these businesses for 12 to 18 months and then exit them for anywhere between 3 to 4x returns in the current market state right now. And so with the platinum principles, all geared towards helping you understand what it is about this e-commerce business, that literally the model is to build and deploy and exit, build, deploy, and exit. For those of you who might have a real estate brain, it's literally like building a house and flipping it for profit, or taking a house and restructuring it and then flipping it for profit. It's literally a virtual real estate, but physical, tangible products I can actually deploy capital into that I know are sitting in a warehouse and I own them. So it's best of both worlds. And I'll teach you how we go through doing that, and it becomes the business model.
Well, I will at the outro of the show today. I'll remind everybody again how they can get access to that Entrepreneur Master Series that you and I are going to do together on how to do that, which is part of an overall training that I do. But let's finish this out. I've got one final question for you, Neil. So a lot of the entrepreneurs that listen to this show are on that early stage. They're either the entrepreneur, the intrapreneur, or they just started and are not really sure what the next step is. So I want you to speak to them out of your decades of very successful experience, not only in the corporate world, but also as an entrepreneur. What is your best advice for those early stage or even pre-stage entrepreneurs?
If you're thinking about it, and time is of a consideration based on how many hours in the day you have, your family, or other business activities that you're doing. If you spent 2 to 3 months or 2 to 3 years already thinking about it, you've wasted enough time to build 1 to 2 brands that could have been cash flowing. So as I said earlier, feel the fear and do it anyways. If you believe e-commerce is your best next step, then the time to get started was yesterday. In all reality, it is a $6.7 trillion industry. Forrester Research and Bank of America, and you can go on Google and validate what I'm about to say, said by 2030, 21 trillion in assets are coming online. And if you know anything, and even if you've touched the surface of crypto, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Digital and business marketing in the online world are about to make a massive shift, and it is still early stage. So if you have an opportunity and you think, I want a hedgehog in the e-commerce world, and you might want to deploy physical products with a virtual opportunity, then I would say get started, even at the onset stage, and take some imperfect action, because something perfect is going to happen along the way. But if you fail to start, then you failed altogether. So it's better to try and fail up than to fail out by not even starting in the first place.
Great advice. And so similar to most of the entrepreneurs I have on this show. At the end, they're like, just get started. So go ahead and get started. Well, Neil, I want to say a big thank you for you to being on the show today. We had a great conversation and actually went in different directions than I was anticipating, but that's the beauty of having a show like this. So I thank you for being a guest here on The Root of All Success. I do look forward to working with you and Voltage, because part of my portfolio companies is having e-commerce. And I know that I've got a big decision in the near future that I've got to make about what my next step is going to be on building that brand online. So I thank you for being here. Thank you for also working with me and helping me build that. And I look forward to having you on the Entrepreneur Master Series sometime in the very near future. So thanks again for being here.
Thank you for having me, Jason. It's been my honor.
Well, there you have it. Yet another amazingly successful entrepreneur, Neil Twa with Voltage Digital Marketing, talking about how he went from W-2 employee. Well, I actually fell out of college and then W-2 employee, building a good corporate career, and then getting into the entrepreneurial space, surviving a business bankruptcy, and then building an amazing business through his passion of helping other people build businesses. I love talking to people like Neil because, number one, I see that they're focused on others. They're not really focused on wealth building for the sake of having wealth. It's focused on others. And I love the passion that he demonstrated and what he loves his family and works, with his daughters and with his wife. I love seeing that in other entrepreneurs because I see so many entrepreneurs in my not just clients that I work with, but people that I'm associated with that are not focused on the right thing. They're working too many hours. They're doing too much, and they are making a lot of money, but they're not focused on the right stuff. So I love talking to Neil. I love talking to people like him. So again, big thanks to Neil for being here. And I want to thank you for tuning into the show. Thank you for being here, for subscribing to the podcast, for leaving a review. It really helps when you leave those reviews. So go to the podcast player, click on the stars, click the star to the right, the 5-star. Tell us how great you think the show is. And if you don't think it's worthy of a 5-star, let me know. Let me know how we can make it better for you. I want to make this show valuable content. And I want to do a little aside. I've got a few really good friends that are in my circle, some business partners and some friends that listen to the show regularly, and they tell me they do. And I just want to say hello to you guys. Thank you for doing that. It means a lot that you're listening in your truck or your car, driving back and forth to the office. Thank you for supporting me, supporting the show. I love you guys, and I thank you for doing that. I will mention right here at the end before I sign off this. I have in my, I'm a business coach. I coach people how to live the exit lifestyle. One of the offerings that I've got is a membership. It's called The Successful Entrepreneur. It's a monthly membership. It's only $55 a month. And here's what you get for that. You get 3 to 4 live trainings with me every single month. One of those I do is called Ask Jason Live. I get on it and I do a 1 hour. It's essentially an open coaching session. All the entrepreneurs from all over the world who are successful entrepreneurs in the membership, they can come in, log in, they can submit questions ahead of time, or they can do it live on the actual webinar, ask questions. And it's like getting me as a coach for an hour talking about your issue right there on Ask Jason Live. You get one of those every single month. You also get 1 to 2 success lectures that I do every single month. And so, for instance, I do success lectures on how generational wealth is created, how you actually can make money, how to hack your time like a millionaire. I do these 1 hour lectures on specific topics of great importance to people just like you as an entrepreneur. You get access to that as well, being part of the membership. And then the third thing, which is what I'm going to talk about with what I'm going to do with Neil in just the very near future, is I do a 1 or 2 Entrepreneur Masters series webinars every month. And those are 90 minutes. And I bring in an outside guest, just like we talked to here with Neil, about his or her expertise and whatever they do. So, for example, just this next week after the recording today, it'll already be in the past by the time you hear this, but I'm doing one on growing your wealth through business acquisitions with a guy named Patch Baker of Mobius, who owns over 50 companies, is looking to own over 1,000. That's a great 90-minute episode for you to learn a few tips and tricks on how to be a better, more successful entrepreneur. Neil Twa and I are going to do how to create an additional stream of passive income online, and he's going to do a deep dive for 90 minutes. And so you're an entrepreneur, you're successful, but what if you could start an additional passive income? That's what you get with the Successful Entrepreneur membership. It's only $55 a month, but you get more than that. You also get access to an online forum. You get access to a content library with all the past video recordings. If you can't make the calls, you can go back and watch them later. You get a weekly newsletter. And if you ever want to buy one of my online courses, you get 20% off the courses. And if you ever want to join one of my group coaching cohorts, you get 10% off that. All of that for only $55 a month. You can cancel anytime. You're not locked in. But I want you to go to therealjasonduncan.com/TSE. That stands for the Successful Entrepreneur. Go to therealjasonduncan.com/TSE, sign up today, and I'll see you in one of our trainings. So I'm the real Jason Duncan. This is The Root of All Success. I'll see you next time when we talk with yet another amazingly successful entrepreneur about his or her journey to success. Easy for me to say, right? His or her journey to success. And remember this, Jesus is King.
Thank you for listening to another edition of The Root of All Success with the real Jason Duncan. If you've enjoyed this week's episode, we invite you to visit therootofallsuccess.com to access the show notes and other helpful resources. Take charge of your business. Grow it from great to incredible. Join us again next time here on The Root of All Success.
This podcast is a part of the C-Suite Radio Network. For more top business podcasts, visit c-suiteradio.com.